Today we're going to talk about some of the locations in Nashville that have connections to country music classics. I'm Brian Mansfield. My background is in journalism. I've spent more than 30 years as a music journalist in Nashville, writing for USA Today and a lot of other places. I'm one of the few people in the country music industry that's actually a Nashville native. I grew up hearing country music and being around all of the places that it was being made, but I didn't necessarily know those things were going on when I was driving by them. I've become fascinated with the locations where things happened, where songs were written, where people lived. So let's get to some music. The thing that I love about this song that a lot of people don't know is that Dolly actually wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You on the same night. She and her husband, Carl Dean, had moved out to this two-story brick house out in the Antioch neighborhood of Nashville, which is in the very southeast corner. They'd moved there just as Dolly began to have some success as a solo artist, her first few top 10 real hits. And so one night she's sitting in her living room and she's getting ready to leave the Porter Wagoner show. And Dolly's trying to figure out what she wants to say, how she wants to say goodbye in a song. And so she writes, I Will Always Love You. The creative juices are really flowing, and so she decides that she's gonna write another song. And this song is about not wanting somebody to leave you. So she writes, I Will Always Love You, and then she writes Jolene. It was a really good night of songwriting royalties for Dolly. Let's listen to another song. It's 1961. Patsy Cline has not had a hit for 4 years. They finally cut I Fall to Pieces, and the record begins to take off. And things begin to turn around for Patsy, and she's finally got her hit. She and her husband Charlie move to a new house out on Hillhurst Drive. She and her brother go off to do some shopping at Madison Square Shopping Center. But on the way back, they take a little bit of a detour. And there's this big hill that you top. You turn off Gallatin Road, you go up this hill, and then you go down it to get to Marthona. And she tops the hill, and as she's doing it, a car that's supposed to be in the other lane is, I guess, passing somebody as they're going up the hill, and they hit Patsy head on. It throws Patsy through the windshield. You can still go out to that spot today. It's right in front of a school. It was Madison High School at the time. And the first time that I went out there knowing what it was, I look up the hill and there's a street that you can turn on right at the top of the hill. Sitting on the sidewalk at that intersection was the front bumper of a Nissan. So apparently wrecks are still happening at this location. Patsy spends weeks in the hospital. I mean, she's just really torn up. All of that happens while I Fall to Pieces is climbing the charts. And it actually, I think, helps that record because all of the DJs are talking about Patsy and how she's in the hospital and how this wreck almost killed her. And if they're gonna talk about it, they're gonna play the record. And so it becomes Patsy's first #1 record. I don't know that her career would have become what it became if it hadn't been for the wreck that almost killed her. Let's listen to some more music. I love the first line of The Gambler. The song was started on a warm summer's evening. It was on a walk, not a train, but it was a warm summer's evening in a part of town that I know very well. 23-year-old computer operator named Don Schlitz, worked at Vanderbilt University, kind of in nights, wanted to be a songwriter. He had been at a meeting on Music Row with a songwriter named Bob McDill, who was kind of his mentor. And so he walks from Music Row to his apartment at a place called the Villager West. And to do that, he's got to walk down Music Row, through Hillsborough Village. Walking that path instead of driving that path gives him just enough time to write the song that would set him on a career that would lead him to Grand Ole Opry membership and the Country Music Hall of Fame. All right, well, let's get to the next song. Around Inglewood, East Nashville, there is a street called Elvira Avenue. Sure enough, it's the place where Dallas Frazier was inspired to write what became the Oak Ridge Boys' signature song. He and his publisher, a guy named Ray Baker, were driving along Gallatin, and depending on which version of the story you hear, either Dallas just happens to notice that there's a street sign, Elvira Avenue, or the way Ray told it, there was a street light that they nearly ran the red light, and when they stopped, Dallas noticed Elvira Avenue. There's no street light there now, so I don't know if there was one back in the mid-60s or not. But both of them say that he sees the sign and pretty much just starts singing the Elvira chorus, and next thing you know, he's got this song. But a couple of people had cut the song, Oak Ridge Boys found it, and it turned into just a huge record that started because somebody passed a street sign. I think we got one more song. Let's get to it. The first commercial recording studio in Nashville, they called it Castle Studios, and it was in the Tulane Hotel downtown, and it's a parking lot now. When it was built, it had been one of the nicest hotels in Nashville, but as the decades passed, it had gotten kind of run down, which is how they got the recording studio in there. From about 1947 to around 1955, about half of the singles on the country charts were recorded at the Castle. Most of the recordings that Hank Williams did in Nashville were cut at the Castle. Kitty Wells recorded It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels. Ernest Tubb recorded there. Flatt and Scruggs, Eddie Arnold. I mean, everybody that was recording in Nashville in the late 1940s, early 1950s was cutting at Castle. Nashville to me is so interesting because magic happens in the most mundane places. But when you know what happened there, you can't drive past that corner without thinking about it. People talk about country music being real stories about real lives. When you can go to the places where those people were living their lives when they created that music, that makes it even more real to me. Shout out to the CMA for having me, and make sure to like and subscribe for more.